Hey folks, welcome to the show. And I'm back with Kelly Sayre. Kelly, how are you doing?
Good. How are you? I'm excited to be back.
I'm happy to have you back because last time we talked about, basically your book, Sharp Women. And for the folks watching on YouTube, you can see it on the right side behind Kelly. Get it. Okay, just get it and buy it and read it. Then things are simple. And we can all understand what we're talking about. But since then, what's been going on? I'm assuming you've had a lot of work promoting the book and then doing a bunch of other stuff. So what's going on in your life first?
Well, yeah, the book promotion, we recorded back in May, correct?
I think so,
Or
yeah.
back in spring, and that was heavy training, teaching, traveling
Yeah,
schedule, and the summer was lighter, which was nice because as an entrepreneur, you have all of the admin stuff, behind the scenes stuff you have to catch up on. So it was nice to be
yeah,
able to have some time to do that. And now it's ramping up again with fall training. People are kind of getting back into the groove. Kids are back in school. There seems to be that switch from summer to fall and winter schedule.
mm,
So got some trips planned coming up in the next few months and just really looking forward to it. Have some training for me, which I always enjoy.
oh, cool.
I'm a constant proponent of never stop learning. So
Yeah, yeah. All right, so folks, so that's episode 91. So if you go to winsblog.com/91, then you can listen to our first conversation. And kind of at the end of it, we came to like, okay, maybe we can do this another time. What could we talk about? And I think we both kind of came up with this idea of, okay, so what are the things that men maybe are afraid or self-conscious about or feel uncomfortable asking female instructors that they're wondering about. And that was kind of the whole setup. I've got a bunch of questions. I got a bunch of questions for my patrons for the bonus episode. We're gonna, there's some really good ones there. And I'm just gonna throw the first one at you, and we'll
sure.
see where we end up with this conversation. So this is from my experience talking to female instructors is that, and women in general, you tend to meet men who are assholes, and they basically, the misogyny is strong in them. And how do you handle as a female instructor, guys? Doesn't matter if it's other instructors or maybe it could be a family member of of a lady joining you in one of your courses, and they're like, yeah, but a woman can't teach self-defense, a woman can't teach situational awareness. They're all up in that macho bullshit mindset. How do you handle that? How do you deal with that?
Well, to your point, it depends on that context. And I mean, every question on your sheet, it was all, well, it depends, because context really does matter. And you broke down the different relational role that men, because in the question that you sent me, it just said men. And I'm looking over here for anyone watching this, because this is where my notes are. But men who don't think a female instructor can teach self-defense or situational awareness. And I mean, my first thought was screw them. It's really easy to say,
Yeah,
screw it. Like, then don't talk to them. But to your point, context matters, relationship with that individual
yeah,
matters. And so if I'm going to live what I teach, I got to get curious. So the rhetorical question that I would put out there is, when you say men, what do you mean?
yeah,
A stranger? Screw them. Again, do you need to engage? No. It kind of goes back to the Facebook comment war. Are you really going to change someone's mind if they're set on their ideals? Probably not. Somebody who is like has that hardcore judgment, is probably going to be a little bit misogynistic and all of that. So is it worth your time?
yeah,
You always kind of that's an emotional mental boundary.
yeah.
Do you want to engage with someone like that? You don't have to. You're not going to change the world. Yes, we need to have these conversations and that's why I loved this topic, because we need to talk about it. But let's say it's a guy, whether that's a friend, a coworker, a family, somebody that's in your circle, you're going to see them again. That again, I would say, well, get curious. Asking for clarification is not rude, and then listen to their response without emotion. There's no need to escalate. or get defensive, because maybe it's coming from a place that is not just a simple, well, women can't do that. Maybe there was some experience they had, or maybe whatever. Again, not justifying, but in order to have a conversation, you really need to understand the other person's perspective to the best of your ability. And so, and then going into that, trusting your intuition. As you're having this conversation, as you're asking questions to try and understand where that opinion is coming from, you're going to know, okay, is this someone who is honestly going to be open to having a discussion about this, or are they pretty set in their ways and it's not going to be worth my time and breath to engage? Because there again, that's protecting your mental and emotional boundary. And everyone has a right to their own opinion. Everyone has a right to their beliefs, right or wrong, it's their beliefs. And so the more you push, sometimes the more people get stubborn and headstrong and, nope, this is, the hill I'm going to die on. This is my belief and you're not going to change my mind. So again, is it worth it? Now, when it comes to a male self-defense instructor having that opinion and openly sharing that and having females in their class, I would say run out the door. That is not someone that you want to take instruction from, because they already are discounting the female's perspective on the daily micro threats or different behaviors that she deals with. And it will, one of your other questions kind of gets a little bit deeper into some of those micro threats or behaviors and what do you do with that? But to me, I would say seriously, if you're saying, oh, really, I can't, you're saying I shouldn't attend that training with that self-defense instructor. It's like, if they don't have the self-awareness to realize I'm a man and I've never been a woman and walked a day in a woman's shoes, then that to me is a closed-minded, and they're not even going to listen to you when you say, well, I can't do that move or that technique, or that doesn't make any sense to me. The wrist grabs. Well, why would we do wrist grabs or hair pulls, or, hey, the different style and attacks that women typically see, because if 75 to 85, whatever, that large statistic of the threat actors that women face are known to us, okay, the attack is going to be different. It's not the boogeyman in the bushes. It's not the stranger in the dark shadows. So the context is going to be different. The situation that the violence starts showing up, or the threatening behavior starts showing up, is going to be different. It's not out, maybe it's in your home. This isn't a bar brawl necessarily, or a street fight. This is behind closed doors, or maybe kids present. So the whole conversation, you have to be in a place that's a safe place to, as a female, ask the question or bring up a scenario. And if the instructor hasn't created that safe space of saying, I'm willing to hear other perspectives, it's already hard enough for women to be in a situation that they have concerns about, but not sure, and then not wanting to speak up or say something maybe out of shame or embarrassment. And so already you've shut them down. Already you've made them uncomfortable to ask and say, well, that's not how it happens. Or, for example, if you're working on getting out of chokes, well, if you're always up against a hard surface and you're not taking into context, you could be being attacked by an intimate partner on a bed, which changes the dynamic of being able to use a hard surface versus a soft surface and the moves that might need to happen. So that was my initial response. And then two, do the role reversal. If it was a female instructor teaching a bunch of men male self-defense, and she said, male self-defense instructors don't know anything. And, I don't think, like, the guys in the class would be like, you've never been a guy. How would you know what violence I face? So that's kind of how I always play the devil's advocate in my head, is, okay, well, if we switched the roles, does the argument still make sense, or does it change things?
No, makes perfect sense to me, and I agree. The thing is that, maybe you've already experienced something like that as well, that doesn't necessarily have to be another instructor, but somebody who's like, if you teach anything to do with self-defense as a woman, that they're like, yeah, but guys, we can just always beat them physically, blah blah blah, and that whatever you bring to the table as a woman is then discounted by the mere fact is that, well, you're not a guy, so you can't really fight as well. It's this whole mindset. I like, and I mean, we'll get into it in one of my later questions, but of course the biological differences are there. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that the perspective of the quote unquote stronger of the species is then going to automatically by default be always the right one, and that the supposedly weaker sex is then going to be having some sort of point of view or experience that can be discounted just on the mere fact, well, you're not as strong, so your ideas don't count. Doesn't make any sense to me. It's you look at the specific dynamics of a situation of let's call it a category of violence against women, violence against men, violence against children. We can come up with a lot of categories. Okay, look at the offenders and look at the victims, and then just maybe look at what people, women in this case, do to successfully defend themselves, because we do know that these things happen, and often more frequently than people might think. But let's talk to these women and like, hey, I survived and this is what I did, and look at that. And that's kind of where I came from with this question, is that I think it's gotten better over the years. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this kind of default macho attitude, that's a little bit less than it used to be. Is that fair to say, or what's your experience with that?
I would say from my outside perspective, because in full transparency, and if anyone's watching this who saw the first episode, I went into how I even got into situational awareness training. I don't have a martial arts background. I haven't done a lot of physical self-defense classes. And thankfully, by the time I did start taking classes, they were with really good instructors who that wasn't even an issue. That wasn't, something that came up. It was almost addressed in like, this does happen if you go other places to take training, or this is something that has happened in the industry. From my personal perspective, I deal with stuff from a situational awareness training perspective, because again, there's not many females, one or two, I don't know. And this is where I don't think I'm the only one, but because there's got to be more. But from a female situational awareness instructor, it's really hard for me to connect or to find male instructors, especially in like the workplace violence prevention arena or active threat training arena. Is they're like, oh yeah, we do situational awareness training already. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, can you tell me more about like, what are some of the things you talk about I'm trying to have a best practices conversation. Maybe I can learn something from you.
Yeah.
And instead they're like, oh, well, we talk about the de-escalation in an argument. And I'm like, well, no, that's like, it's in there, you're there. Like what about all of the pre-indicators or some of the earlier things, or helping break down your senses and how your intuition works? Because we as humans have really good intuition, whether or not we understand it and can articulate what our intuition is telling us. That's a whole different ball game. And so that's been a challenge for me, is trying to get people to understand what makes the Diamond Arrow group training different than primarily what I've been seeing out there already. That's there, is it's very militaristic, it's tactic, it's technical. And, to the point that I hear over again, in violence dynamics training, which is the training I've done, is we got to build up those foundational skills. Okay, well, to me, situational awareness is the foundational skills are all of our senses and understanding how it processes through our subconscious filter, which is the orient of the OODA loop. And then how, like the mental scenarios, and we learn best through play. So if you're constantly like using scare tactics, or worst case scenario, you're being followed at night and it's raining and it's dark and it's like, okay, people are going to shut down. Whereas versus you're like, hey, moms don't have eyes in the back of their heads, do they? No. we hear the footsteps, or in my kid's case, which I think is pretty universal for parents, when it's too quiet, then my intuition signal goes, something is wrong. It's too quiet. You know, I have 2 boys, so it's never quiet when they're here. So.
Yeah. Okay. No, makes perfect sense. All right. Let me get to the second question. And a little bit of background for this one. This is something that I encounter a lot when just casually talking to people when it comes to self-defense for women, avoidance, awareness, and so on. Is that, you know, they're like, yeah, but I'm already careful, you know, or I already know how to avoid that kind of stuff. And how do you reach women like that when, you know, about the importance of awareness, avoidance, and so on, when either you know them personally or you've seen their interactions, or by their own words, they are telling you that they're actually acting in the opposite manner?
Yes. Yep. It's the, oh yeah, I never walk with earbuds. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. You know, how are your car door locks? You know, does your vehicle automatically unlock as soon as you put it in park? So there's always holes, I would say, where people think, oh yeah, I'm aware, because they're thinking of a specific scenario.
Yeah.
Or you know, XYZ, whatever it may be. And then they kind of go, so I'm set. And so to me, again, it's that going back, getting curious. It's like, oh yeah. You know, I don't want to start with, well, you're wrong. You're not aware, because that's not starting from a good place. That's not starting from a open conversation and curiosity place. And then it was, okay, buy Sharp Women. Oh, you think you're aware? Oh, that's awesome. You should read Sharp Women. It's got some great daily habits to help build other areas. Because again, it's, oh, so, you know, do you have a plan for home security? Do you have small children? So how do you talk to your kids? And almost coming from again, that curiosity place, because maybe they have a trick or a fun little game they play with themselves, with their kids, with their loved ones, with their friends, you know, that they do. And then it's like, oh, I'm going to steal that idea. So kind of giving that, but then having that conversation, because there are so many different scenarios and avenues, and, you know, congratulating them, saying, yep, you're aware. Great. And what else? Because there's no such thing as perfect situational awareness. There's no such thing as always being, you know, condition red or, you know, condition orange, because otherwise you'd wear out. So we got to at least get them conversing and talking without being condescending.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's why I wanted to ask, because from the perspective as a male instructor, for me, it's like I'm seeing all this stuff happening, and, you know, women are basically painting a target on their back. And just recently there was this thing that I posted on my Facebook page that a lot of some people got upset about, and I'm like, you're not getting it. So I was walking to my car, which was parked a little bit further out. There's a bus stop there, and I don't know, like 10, 20 yards in front of me, somebody gets off, young lady, and she's walking away in the same direction as my car. So
yes, I saw that post.
Yeah.
Yep.
You couldn't miss her, because she had like a pink trolley that she's putting behind her, and pink
like
headphones.
A suitcase, right?
Yeah, trolley is something else. Yeah, sorry. We call it trolley over here. Anyway, so, and she's just, I mean, even as she was crossing the street, she wasn't looking left and right. She's just doing her thing. And she's walking towards my car, which is parked a little bit further. So I took a few pictures as I got closer, and I'm like, I wonder, is she going to look over her shoulder just once? Nothing.
Yeah.
And I just as I mean, she was a lot smaller than I am. I was just walking at my regular pace, but I eventually caught up to her, because I walk faster, obviously take bigger steps. And I passed her to the right just as I reached my car, because I need to, the way that the street works is I need to, you know, get in the street. And I passed her. She didn't look at me once. She was completely oblivious and just in her own bubble.
Yeah.
And for me, that is, I mean, when we talk about situational awareness, this is the opposite. Is you're closing down your senses. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be crime. It can just be a car that that blows a tire and skids and you're about to get squashed. I mean, you're just completely closed off from society and your environment. And you paint just a big target on your back for those who are actually looking for victims. And one of the things we do know about crime and criminals is that a really large part of the incidents that people suffer from is that it's just the opportunity presented itself.
Yeah.
It's not that, ooh, I'm gonna just stand here waiting for the perfect victim to come along. No, they're doing their thing, and then the perfect victim comes along, and they decide to act upon it. This one lady got really upset about that and called me all sorts of names and this and that. I can be a little bit combative. And like, when you come to my page and accuse me of a bunch of shit, you're going to get an answer, which basically is like, I said, shame on you, because you're telling me that I can't teach women to defend themselves and to avoid danger. And one of the points that I tried to make to her, and I had to block her because she went on another accusation tour, is that I've over the decades I've worked with many women that actually ended up coming to me, referred to me by other people who had been abused, beaten, raped, and worse. And then one of the first things we talk about, obviously, is the incident, but then awareness and avoidance. Is that when you can choose having to fight the guy who did that to you in the same incidents, or avoid it altogether, which one do you pick? 100% they say avoidance. Like, okay, so let's start building on that first, and then we eventually get to physical stuff that you can do. And it starts like what you specialize in, situational awareness. You can't avoid what you don't know is happening around you. So let's start there. And it's this mindset of like dismissing all that, dismissing situational awareness and the avoidance that you can that flows from it. And like, no, women should be safe walking down the street with headphones and sunglasses and be butt naked and whatever. And you should be safe. And like, should is a horrible word because we don't live in that universe where should works. And I might agree.
Life isn't fair.
No, it isn't fair. The universe isn't fair.
Right.
It's a very hostile place, the universe. It's lethal to human life, pretty much everywhere except here. So and that was kind of where my question was coming from, is this idea that a lot of people just dismiss it out of hand. And I find it so hard to reach them sometimes, because what I've been noticing of lately more and more is that this dismissal comes from this kind of postmodernist ideology, more of like, well, women shouldn't have to, and don't the other a guy just reacted to the same pictures with like, teach your sons not to rape, and don't teach your daughters. I'm like, do both.
Yeah.
Do both.
Why does it always have to be one or the other? Why can't it be both?
I don't get it. And it's this kind of like resistance that I feel like either is pure dismissal or on the other hand, ideological, like, this is how the world should be for a variety of reasons that I don't necessarily disagree with. But it's mostly like, until that word materializes, how about we teach women to be aware of their surroundings and men as well, and children as well, to avoid danger. Anyway, I went on a mini rant. Sorry about that.
No. And I actually was like, I have thoughts on that too, as you were talking, is okay. Again, you knew, like, she kept escalating. She kept coming back. At some point, some people, you just go, I'm glad that you have it figured out and that you have good awareness skills. I share this because there might be people out there that don't. So this is just a teaching moment. I'm not being judgmental. I'm trying to help others who maybe weren't aware of that or didn't think about it from that perspective. Because in those pictures, it wasn't a video, she had headphones on too, right?
Yeah.
Right. So it's that whole sense of hearing. It's the whole sense of just, like you said, getting really in tune. Because if somebody said, yeah, I should be able to walk down my street without getting attacked by a guy, you're right. How about a dog? What if walking along some of those gardens, a dog comes out and gets attacked? I just saw a headline where I want to say a small child and an aunt were severely injured by a dog attack. Okay, you're not going to hear a dog coming if you've got your headphones on and you're not paying attention. So again, it's not always about a specific predator, right? Sometimes it's a dog attack, it's a car, it's somebody, looking down to change the station or to fuddle with something in their car, and they don't see you in the crosswalk. Like, you can only control your actions. You can't control the world around you all the time. So again, it's not, awareness is about something that's off in your environment. It's not a specific threat.
Yeah.
So that was my 2 cents when I was thinking about it.
Well,
And I got another one.
Go.
Wait a minute, I have another one. So for those, and I won't give it away for anyone who hasn't read my book, but the first chapter is a real scenario, transcripted from a real recording. And that female in there reached out to me because I gave her a copy, obviously. And she said, I was thinking, where was this book when I was 18? I could have prevented being the first chapter. And then B, she said, I think because of my life experiences, I am excellent when it comes to controlling behaviors in an intimate relationship. But she goes, what was an aha moment for me reading your book was the impact of boundaries in friendships. Like, again, we can get pigeonholed into thinking that specific threat is going to be from an intimate partner or, whatever. And then it's like, boundaries are still healthy between friends. Any good relationship has good boundaries. It isn't always an intimate relationship. So to me, that's where I love hearing back from readers saying, I thought I knew it all, or I thought that I had figured it out because I'd focused on the specific area to work on my daily habits. But now it's like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about that, because we don't know what we don't know. And that's why my book, I tried to be as broad and yet specific as possible, because I wanted people to take the foundational skills and apply it in their life wherever they needed it.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, if Mark likes to say this, and if something is true, it tends to be true, universally, meaning across culture and time. And I think this applies here. If you need to learn to set boundaries, like what you say in an intimate relationship, and that takes certain skills, certain insights, and so on. Well, why would it be in a friendship relationship, but also in a professional relationship?
Yep.
With
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure you know plenty of women as well who've been harassed in the workplace and had to deal with it. And it's the same thing. It is primarily, it has to do with boundaries. Now, I'm not saying that.
That's the Patreon question. I have some good stories. So anyone who's not a member of Women's Patreon, now might be the time to sign up.
Excellent. I'm going to hit you with the next question. So, and again, also this is one of mine, and I'll give some more background about that as well. How do you make women understand what it feels like when a man uses his full strength against a woman? Now, this needs a little bit of background. We live in an age where there's supposedly no differences anymore, and we're all supposed to say that men and women are equal as human beings. I agree, physically speaking, equal, not in the sense of better, but more like the mathematical equation is the same thing. We're not the same.
Right.
There was a really interesting, I think I mentioned that last time, but I'm not sure anymore. There's this TV show over here. It's an American show about botched plastic surgery. And then these two surgeon guys, they try to fix whatever went wrong. And there's this lady who was born a man and had a lot of fillers injected, and it was all crap. And they had to go fix all that stuff. And the surgeon says to one of the assistants, like, now don't forget that she was born a man, and because of that, the way that the hair is implanted in her cheeks is different. So we have to do this and this and this. And it's just a tiny little detail. Like, if we don't do this right, we treat her like a woman, it's not going to be the same thing. It's not going to be a good result. So that's a tiny difference. There are many massive differences, and one of them is upper body strength. which is whether you like it or not. And there's a really good illustration of that. There's a video somewhere on YouTube where this woman, she's pretty strong, and she's like, I can arm wrestle the average guy easy. And there's this guy who's a skinny looking dude he says, I don't work out, and they arm wrestle, and he just floors her. And I'm like, this is a difference that I found a lot of women don't understand, because unless they've really suffered it, unless they've been on the receiving end of a man using his full force, I'm going to caveat that, well, add a different category to that as well, you don't know what it feels like. So the question is, how as a woman do you explain that to women? And the caveat is this: when you look at violence, we can again make a bunch of categories, and let's say we look at social violence, and violence that happens in domestic violence doesn't necessarily start with the beating of your life with broken bones and this and that. It can be as simple as grabbing you by the throat, or grabbing a wrist and just squeezing really hard, shoving you against the wall and keeping you pinned, all stuff like that, which is not a man using his full force. No. Him using his full force is grabbing your wrist and yanking you to the floor, and you just face plant. Right. And it especially applies when it comes to striking. There's a very hard to watch for many women video of, in a parking lot, a guy and a man and a woman arguing. He's a big guy. She's not very tall, and he's big. And she is just, I mean, you can see her screaming at him, and she's slapping him in the face, and he's just not, he's taking it. This goes on for a long time, until eventually he just throws a haymaker like he would another man. And I mean, it's a bad video to watch. And it's one that I use in classes to illustrate that concept. Is that, look, unless you've been so unfortunate that you've been on the receiving end of that kind of violence as a woman, it's very difficult to understand that it even exists. Because if you've been on the receiving end of the more quote unquote social violence that you see, or what I like to call the lower levels of violence, which doesn't mean they're good. It's just, it still sucks, but it's like a different dimension. It's like there's a door to a completely different world that you don't know is there until it opens. And I've talked and taught many women who went through that door, and that I didn't understand that even existed. I kicked him so hard in the nuts, and he just got furious, and he bit my finger and broke it and stuff like that. And so anyway, that was a long explanation. So how do you explain that as a female instructor?
So I would ask, hey, did you grow up with any siblings? Did you have any cousins? Did you have, guy friends when you were growing up that you would wrestle with or grapple? And now again, there's some women who are like, no, I had all sisters, or I was an only child. I didn't wrestle or grapple or play fight even as a kid. And they say, well, one thing that I know, my brother and I are 3 years apart. I was 3 years older, and we used to grapple all the time and wrestle. And up until he was about 16. And then even though I was 19, he could kick my butt just because, and that was a reality of, and again, in a not scary context, but it's pointing that out. And then how is that woman responding, or how are they responding? Because I just really find it, when I'm talking with women, that there's very few that don't recognize that men are stronger physically. In fact, that to me is why a lot of women come to my training or are attracted to it, because even though they want to go take self-defense, or they've taken a self-defense class, they know the reality is, in a situation, they're going to be attacked, and or not going to be in the sense, but in a situation, if it's a male attacker, they're probably going to be stronger. And I also bring up the predator versus prey thing. Do you hunt or not? Or just, have you ever watched Discovery Channel? A predator never goes after prey that they think is going to beat them. So a predator is always looking for prey that they perceive as weaker. You know, and only in that sense, situation where you're talking about the arm wrestler, where perception, he was a skinnier dude, said he didn't work out, you might go, she's probably going to beat him, and then go, ooh, no. But I think the general population of females knows that. And that's what scares them the most. And that's why they look at all men and evaluate potential danger. You know, could this individual cause me danger or harm, physical harm? You know, then my senses are going to go up a little bit, or going to be more aware, more present, because I'm going to be a little bit more nervous, because I know that if you wanted to, you could. Now, to your point of full force, or maybe like rage, you throw rage in there in a controlling abuser mindset, is that too is kind of a universal. Rage is universal. There's things that I've, you know, when my adrenaline's pumping in anger, that it's like, wow, I didn't realize I was capable of that. And so you can kind of pull them in that way and say, you know, have you ever been really mad at someone and done something that you normally wouldn't do, or you normally wouldn't react so strongly? That's also in an abuser's mindset, is they're raging, you know, because they can't control you, or you're fighting back or whatever. They're going to have that superhuman strength due to that adrenaline. And so that's, I guess, how I would have that conversation. And in a training scenario, I thought of the one-step drills that Rory Miller and Randy King and Casey Keckheis and Tammy McCracken talk about in violence dynamics, is, you know, doing those drills, you're not pulling punches, you're going all the way through, just really slow. And so when we can slow it down, and then it's like, okay, I'm going to put all my weight on you until you're like, oh my gosh, okay, I can't breathe. Okay, I'm not going to let up, but I'm going to stay this and not go further, but know that I could go further if I needed to, you know, those kind of things where it's like you can slowly introduce, or if there's a playful way to do it. I can't believe that there would be such a large portion of people that you would interact with, or and not you specifically, Wim, but your listeners too, where they would doubt that biologically men are stronger.
Oh, I'm not sure it would be like doubting, but more along the lines of like not realizing just how big that disparity can be, even in a guy who doesn't look all that strong. I mean, I'm a little bit oversized, you know, compared to the average man, maybe. Although I have heard that I'm no longer, you know, tall. That, you know, nowadays people are taller than that on average than I used to be. So I'm like, okay, but I'm still pretty strong for my age. So a woman can look at me and like, okay, that guy's probably stronger than I am. But then look at a guy who's maybe my age as well, but he's got a narrow frame. He's not, you know, very muscular. Still, that guy is going to be a lot stronger than that lady. And that it's not necessarily like, you know, oh, I can't believe men are stronger, more because they've never really experienced what it's like. That level of physical force.
Does that go back to rage? Like they've never experienced someone being that angry at them?
No, it's just how can I put that best? Have you ever driven a Tesla?
No.
Okay, so if you've got somebody, and especially you've got, you know, the really powerful ones, the type of acceleration that you can do when you floor it with a really good electric car is unlike what most cars can do. I drive a Hyundai. It's a mild hybrid. It doesn't do that, but I can floor it if I like, and it's going to go pretty fast eventually. And it has a certain acceleration that is much better than my car from 10 years ago. But, you know, it's not like a Tesla. That's not it. And the way you get jammed back into your seat as they take off,
the G-forces.
Is you can't explain that until you experience it. So it's more along those lines, like, you know that car goes fast, and you know, okay, this is typically what happens. But there's a difference, I think, maybe quality-wise in understanding when you actually experience that.
I think that's a really good analogy. I think that's excellent because that again takes out of the violence context and it's simply an experience.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example. What I tend to do when I do last few years, it's mostly been, private classes of self-defense for women and working with victims. When they ask me like, okay, could you teach my daughter or could you teach my friend, blah, blah, blah. That happens. And one of the exercises I do is I do ask if at all possible that a man can be present for that first part. I said, look, okay, I'm going to just wrap my arms around you and hold you. You can do whatever you like to break free. I don't care. Be as vicious as you like. And we're going to do this for up to 30 seconds. Somebody has a timer and say, go. And I hold them. And I said, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to hold you. And you can be as vicious as you want. And they don't get out because I'm strong enough that I can just hold them and squeeze just hard enough so they can't really use their arms well. And if they're not really, really well trained, it's going to be very difficult. It's not my first rodeo either, right? So I can manage that fairly well. And I said, how does that feel? Well, that feels horrible because I'm stuck. I'm completely helpless. Like, okay, so let's put that aside now. And I asked the guy, I'm going to do the same thing to you, and you can break free as much as you like, right? So I grabbed the guy. Somebody says 30 seconds. And I said, before we start, I want you to tense up first. So lock your muscles and everything. As soon as they say go, I start shaking him around and pushing and pulling and not really wrestling, but just manhandling him really, really bad. And he doesn't get out anyway, again, unless it's really well trained or he cheats and starts before the 30 seconds countdown begins. And then I said, look, I could have done that with you as well. Now because he's stronger and bigger, and I told him to tense up, he's not hurt right now. But imagine if I do that with you harder, because I didn't go all out with him, and then smack you to the floor. Okay, This is what we're talking about. So this is a qualitative difference in experience that unless somebody does it to you, and there's no way I'm going to do that with a woman that I'm teaching, I'm just not going to go to that level.
That's good. That's a good
quality to have. Explain that, okay, do you see that we're talking about something else that is very hard to make you experience that? And this is the high level violence that you might encounter. Now we can look at all the different steps of when we get to very low level stuff to the high level stuff, and most people don't get to the highest levels of violence, whether it's men or women. But when you do, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. And the reason why I started doing that is when I many years ago had somebody that was training who had actually had been in a horrific incident, attacked by a guy, and that was what she experienced, and she was like, she couldn't believe what was going on, and it was like nothing I did worked. So like I said, I kicked him in the nuts as hard as I could. Didn't happen. I punched somebody, this and that, and it just became more and more enraged, and he started just breaking bones and so on. And for me, that was a moment when I thought, like, okay, you don't want to, like you said, don't scaremonger, don't create a bunch of fear, because everybody comes to your class or course or session with baggage, obviously. But we eventually have to talk about that stuff, because the key point for me is what I don't want anybody that I teach to go away with is, well, okay, now I know what to do when they've just had like a few lessons or a little bit of training. Well, that makes sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And I think that's really good and touches on so many things, because again, you said, you have to build that trust with them. So you don't do it right away to the female where you use the male example, and then I'm going to do it more with him or harder. Oh yeah, that's so good. I do think it's the trust. I do think it's you don't know what you don't know.
I mean, the reason I ask is that as a female instructor, again, we get back to the pure physical part of it. Unless you're a lot bigger and stronger than the smallest lady in your class or group, or whatever, it's going to be difficult for you to simulate that, right? Whereas Many guys will be able, you can grab a guy off the street if he's young and strong and big, and like, just hold her, don't hurry, just hold her. That's just like, I wouldn't say any guy can do that, but a bunch of them will be able to do that. So it's kind of getting that message across, which is it's a very specific question. It's not like, well, if you can't teach that, you can't teach anything. That's nonsense. It's not what I mean.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And again, context matters, depends, not trying to get out of answering it. But I think that's a good conversation to keep bringing up. Okay, well, hey, and to your listeners, reach out to women and say, okay, I have this situation, or I have this woman that I'm training. And because we do owe it to, yes, not fearmonger, but also to be real and to be honest, and to have that honest discussion takes a rapport building, takes that trust as an instructor, which kind of makes me think back to your first question. If they don't think that females can instruct or females can teach, and that they're the best thing, is then they're probably not going to fit. They're not going to have that rapport with you. Yeah. They're not going to have that trust with you. So then it might be harder for a female in the class to get that concept, or think, well, that he's just trying to scare me. Yeah. And it's like, if you've built that trust with them, you can say, I know,
Yeah, and that's something, obviously, I mean, it's like you just said, it's not something that I do in the first 5 seconds of whatever I'm teaching or class or and so on. And for me, the reason I often ask, both male and female instructors when we get to talking about that, is that because I don't have a good answer other than what I just explained. I'm looking for a better answer, because it's hard to bring that across. And I don't know how to do it in a way. I mean, we need virtual reality or something that you can experience it. I don't know, but something. But how do you? It's like the equivalent is that you haven't been punched in the face by a boxer until he actually punches you in the face. You can train as much as you like, but you know what it's like until you get punched in the face. And then it's one thing when he does it lightly in training. Something else when he said, okay, we're going to go a little bit faster now. You get popped a few times. And then, you spar, and it's different. And you spar hard. It's really different. And then you have your first fight. And that's another dimension still. And it's all punches to the face, but they're all different. So how do you explain, when I don't do it anymore, but I used to coach guys to fighting combat sports. And I said, look, we're going to try to recreate the real thing as much as possible here in class. And I would sometimes just bring a bunch of people in, and everybody wants to scream, make noise, and pretend that there's this big crowd and this and that. So try to get as realistic as we can, but it's still not going to be the same thing. And there is no way for me to fully prepare you other than I want you to do these things here and have these good habits. Don't drop your guard, step out of range if you're not actually attacking, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. Don't just lean back and do nothing.
Right.
So that you have a shot at actually doing that. And I've had the last one I prepared is that now I understand why you said all that stuff. I was like, yeah, it would have been better if you listened to me while we were training, but I mean, because
you would have just believed me. So and so while you were talking and I was thinking about what you were saying in a training, like how, like I want different ways to talk about that. Or to use as an example. So I started trying to think about, okay, so what are we trying to really prove? We're trying to prove that you don't know what you don't know, or you don't know until you've experienced it. So, okay, taking that principle, where else can you apply that makes sense in their life? For me, again, I go back to motherhood. Like, I read all the books, I, asked all the questions, but until I had a baby, I did not know what it was going to be like to have a baby, like literally the delivery, So there's times in everyone's life where you're preparing for a test, you're preparing for, if you're an athlete, like to your point, like even if it was practice, volleyball, like softball, and pick a sport until you're in the game, until you're under the stadium lights, until there's an audience, like it changes things. So until you experience the full effect, and I hate to say full effect in an abuse example, but until you've experienced it firsthand, you just can't know.
Yeah. No, makes sense. Okay. It's like I said, it's one of those things that I'm still struggling with to find a better solution to what I do now, or a different way of explaining it, so I can bring just that point across. And again, for the people listening, I mean, it's not like this is not the most important thing when it comes to avoiding violence. It's not the only thing by far. I would say it's more of a not necessarily outlier case, but more an extreme situations. The vast majority, I think, of the situations are going to be much lower level, that you need very different skills to get rid of that. Like, situational awareness is obviously the primary skill you need to develop. So I don't want to overly focus on that part.
Right.
Okay.
It's a great question.
All right, next one. How to reach women who think that kicking a guy in the nuts is a magical solution that works in all situations. I've actually, and this could be a Belgian thing, I have no idea, but this is something I've heard, let's say, more than one woman say, well, I just kick him in the nuts. Like, you do realize that's not like an on-off switch, right? not in that regard. It's not a guaranteed success that, okay, the fight's or the situation's over. And this question has to do with misinformation.
Mm-hmm.
And myths about what actually is going on with men's genitalia. It might be a little bit different than what people, but just like a guy has no idea what it's like to be in a woman's body, vice versa is just as true. And that's kind of what this question revolves around.
Right. And to your point, I've seen that as a comment on, what would you do in this scenario? I'd kick him in the balls and run. Well, okay. And what if he has baggy jeans? What if he's wearing, we're in cold climate, and what if they are wearing overalls or snow pants or something that there's more cushion? Or what if they're in an altered state? What if they're drunk or high? What if they're having a mental health crisis and they just don't feel pain right now? It's to the point of there's no perfect answer. There's no perfect tool. There's no perfect move. There's no one tool that if you carry this, you will be able to prevent all violence. It's why you need a variety. Getting away from the self-defense conversation is, ladies, specifically, how many night creams do you use, or makeup products, or different clothing items? Like, you don't have just one. And so relying on one isn't a good option. And with guys, it's, and gals, I hate to make this so sexist. It seems like very sexist, but I'm trying to use all different examples. So hopefully your listeners can pull something from one of them and apply it in context. The toolbox. You don't just have a Phillips screwdriver and that's all you use for everything. You have a variety. So relying on, my plan is to kick them in the nuts. Really? What if you have a broken foot? It's kind of playing that devil's advocate for them and saying that's just not a realistic. And I think it's up to you and I as instructors to have that honest and say that. And somebody might get mad and say, well, whatever. And it's like, I don't want you to end up in a situation where you think that's going to be the on-off switch, and then suddenly it's not. Because there's people who get tased and they fight right through it, or they get right back up and they're back at it. So it's like, what's the plan? How can you avoid it? Or how can you, so I would say too, if you're going to do something, you got to do it swift. If you are in a physical altercation, swift, with as much power, with as much gusto to cause as much damage as possible, and then get the heck out of there. And I just don't think a groin kick, they may flinch. Sometimes people say, well, it doesn't even matter if it doesn't hurt them, they flinch. Okay, well, flinch is a second. That doesn't buy you enough time, because I could flinch, you could turn around and I could grab the back of your coat or your backpack or whatever. Because, if it's a guy, they might have long arms. So relying on a one kick on and off switch, it's not viable.
I agree. And as a guy who has been kicked in the nuts before, fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know how I framed that one, not by women, is that I've had the range of experiences. Like one time I was doing I was very young then. There was a belt test in the martial arts school I was training, and I had to be one of the attackers. And I go after the guy with the strike, and he just kicks me so hard in the nuts. I dropped down. I was like, whimpering. And I was like 15, 16, I don't remember. But then in other situations, I had it once in competition. The guy really went for them, and it just made me so angry. And in other situations as well, where it happened, where a guy went for it, and the pain came much later. So, he was in pain before earlier than I was, because it registered obviously, like, okay. And there's a big difference also. That's one of the things that is also very hard to explain unless you've experienced, depending on how hard the kick is and how badly it lands, or unfortunately for the receiving guy that it lands. There might be some serious damage there that requires surgery and more. But even in those cases, the effect is not necessarily immediate. And depending on, like what you said, he might be drunk, he might be high, he might be not feeling pain, or he just might get really angry because he knows what's going to come next for him, that it decides to just really go all out on you because he's so pissed off that you damaged him to that point. And I've had a case where it happened, and I'm like, I'm going to be in so much pain later that I got really angry. The pain wasn't that bad after all, but it's like that it is actually more a trigger to higher levels of violence than actually a solution to whatever violence that the person is facing. So
and that goes to the escalation and why context matters. What do you feel comfortable doing? So what then? What next? And then if you mentally walk through it and play it out and say, what if it doesn't impact? And I think, again, I don't know what it feels like. I've been a woman. So having guys, instructors saying, I have been kicked in the balls before, not because I was doing something that warranted that response, but in a training scenario. And here was my personal experience with it. And so women hearing from men, actually, from firsthand, or I can tell you, like, it didn't land in the right spot. So actually it just made me mad because I knew what their intention was. And having that and hearing that and going, I always thought, because in the movies it shows, you kick them in the balls and they fall down and they're down forever or whatever.
Well, for me, this is the equivalent of like when people say to them, like, you just hold your keys in your hand like a fist, like that, and punch like that. I'm like, have you tried that? Maybe you should try it on something not that hard first and see how it messes up your hand and how it actually doesn't really work all that well. And that it just becomes this, I don't know, whether it's movies or TV or something else, I have no idea, but it becomes this thing that is in the, collective subconscious mind of men and women, like, just this is what you do, and we're done. That's the magic bullet. That's the magic solution.
I actually play a video in my training. It was a gentleman who was in jail for mugging, and the interviewer is asking him questions about what can people do to avoid being mugged, and it's a conversation. But one of the things he brings up is, the women holding keys in their hands. And he's like, unless you're a good fighter, and even if you are, that's not a good solution, because you might have just escalated the situation. You pissed him off, made him angry. And then now what? So his whole point was make noise, avoid, do everything. If they just want your purse, throw your purse and run the other way. Like, you're more valuable than anything. Like, why are you trying to get into a fight?
Yep.
So, yeah.
Okay. Let me see, and I have one more question
Yes.
for you, and it's a little bit cheating, but which question would you want men to ask female instructors? Because
Anything and everything.
okay,
Anything and everything. We're not, to the point of this whole podcast, if we're not having these conversations and bringing forth our questions, we're not going to learn. We're not going to learn from each other, and other people listening aren't going to go, huh, I never thought of it that way. Because, you know, in my trainings, a lot of times I preface before I even start, I say, hey, listen, ask questions. Because I bet if you have the question, there's somebody else in the room that has the same question, and maybe they don't feel comfortable asking. You know, I'm a conversational instructor. So if you interrupt me, it's not going to throw me off. I would much rather have the conversations, because we need to be bringing these forward.
yeah.
And no matter how many times we feel like, hey, I've said this in every class that I've ever taught. Well, guess what? This class, there's somebody who's never seen you teach. So having these conversations, and if, you know, men or women, if you don't feel comfortable going up to the instructor, or raising your hand, I should say, in class, then go up to the instructor afterwards and have a one-on-one, pull them aside, which leads back to that first question you asked, is you've got to have trust. You've got to have rapport. And if a self-defense instructor immediately makes you feel unwelcomed, or that they're not going to listen to you, or they're not going to take your questions seriously, then that's not someone you want to train with. That's someone that you should say, not for me. I'm going to find someone else.
Yeah. Okay. Agreed. All right. Well, that's all my questions. I don't know if there's anything you want to add.
No, to me, the question that I always want to ask male instructors, but more from a situational awareness, is how do you teach situational awareness? Are you teaching situational awareness? And I don't mean saying be more aware of your surroundings, to which people can go, I am aware of my surroundings. Have the deeper conversations. Don't be afraid. It is not a weakness to admit that you don't know everything, because we can't. As humans, we can't know everything. And why I choose to stay in situational awareness lane is because there's so much information out there, and there's so much for me to learn. So I don't want to say, I'm going to learn physical self-defense so I can instruct, so that I'm the both, because to me that waters it down, both of them, that I'm not giving. That's where it's like, I want to partner with specific, especially male instructors who maybe are, oh, I'm concerned, because I have heard from male instructors, they're worried that what I teach will come off as like man hating, or, the man is always the enemy, to the point in our first episode when we talked about the real enemy of women. What is the real enemy of women? And ask those questions, reach out and say, you know what? I've been teaching physical self-defense for 20 years. Tell me more about your situational awareness program. Or, you read my book and then you were like, I have questions. Get curious, because I'm not here to replace physical self-defense. I'm here to augment. I'm here to collaborate. I'm here to work with, so that you can provide, as an instructor, a holistic program. So that would be my ask of instructors. Like, just, if you're curious, or if you're wondering, don't recreate the wheel. Focus on what you're good at, and let's talk on how I can help, bring that perspective to your training, so that you can focus on what you're good at, and I can focus on what I'm good at, and we can work together.
Yeah, and I guess it's just a universal thing that people, when you're an expert in something, that when you get a question outside of your expertise, many people then instinctively feel like they have to give an answer, as opposed to, I don't know, or go ask that person. We all have an ego, obviously, so it's not fun to say, well, I don't know, and then if they then keep asking questions, you have to say it five more times, and I'm like, oh, I really don't know, because
I'm not trying to hide anything from you.
But more along the lines of that. maybe I'm wrong, but I've seen
No.
maybe a lot of instructors prefer to just do the physical self-defense because that's their wheelhouse and that's what they feel comfortable with, maybe have a lot of experience with it as well. And that, everything that comes before that is boring. Or what maybe even worse is that, well, you just know, right? Because they've been living that lifestyle or they grew up in that kind of life where having awareness of your surroundings, and because that meant you got beat up or not, or you died or not, that is just, you learn it as you go, as you grow up, because that's just the environment that you're in. Is that no, you never go out the door like this. You first do this and that. Why? Well, obviously, because the gangbanger is going to shoot your head off. Okay. So I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you get the point. It's mostly about assumptions, I think. Like, well, everybody knows that, right? Or on the other hand, maybe like don't really feel comfortable, or it's not fun, or they might have to admit that actually, I'd have to do a lot of work to really do as good a job that I do with the physical stuff, with all the soft skills and the awareness part and so on, and then realize that, wow, that's a lot of work. I don't want to do that, and then just focus on techniques.
Well, and you may know or have a good perspective on this. Another thing that I've found just in myself is when I'm trying to promote my public classes, which I just don't offer very much anymore because people expect the physical piece. And I'm like, nope, this is all classroom. And they're like, you're just going to tell me how to, fight. And I'm like, no, it's actually, I'm trying to help you avoid it. And so it's really, I think it's tough to get people to sign up for situational awareness classes because it's not, I feel like it's getting more and more accepted, or it's talked about more and more out there. Again, in that world, I'm fairly new, so you would be the better sounding board for that. But I think it would be hard to say we're doing strictly a situational awareness class if you're a physical self-defense instructor, because they're going to say, well, no, I'm coming to you to learn how to defend myself. So I want to hit things or kick things. I want to kick them in the nuts. No, let's try and avoid all of this because it's not sexy. And if you avoid violence, you don't always get gratification or confirmation that you avoided it because you didn't go down that street, or you went left instead of right because you felt like someone was following you, or you went into the store. And so, yeah, I think it's a challenge too for instructors. And I don't know if you've heard that. I mean, have you tried to have conversations with people? Do you see them shut down when you're like, okay, we're going to talk about avoidance? And they're like, well, that's not fun.
Yeah, typically when I teach, this is one of the first things that I address. Is just awareness and avoidance, because the vast majority of the situations you can prevent just with working on those two. But then it's mostly about, I frame it in a larger context. So let's look at anything that has to do with keeping yourself safe. You don't even have to call it self-defense, but just how do I keep myself safe and live an awesome life that that I can enjoy with my loved ones and my family and so on. Good. So let's start by framing it that way. And then, there is a part physical self-defense in there somewhere, but then I try to explain like this is by far not the most important part, because every single fight you avoid is one that you win. Not in the Bruce Lee sense, but more along the lines of that you have no idea how bad that can get.
Well, yeah, because even if you successfully defend yourself, you're still probably going to take damage.
Yeah,
you're going to get hurt.
There's one of the long list of books that I want to write is what I'm going to call the 5 battles, which is about okay, so violence, self-defense. You have to win 5 fights. I'm not going to name all of them, but you have to win the fight against the guy, the fight against yourself, the fight against law enforcement, not necessarily, but often afterwards, and so on. And then just look at all these things, and they're all different skill sets and need different information. What I find is that if you frame it correctly for people, they understand it better. And what I really like to do is use like videos and examples from movies and so on that people can see, like, okay, look at this. There's an older movie with Harrison Ford, Clear and Present Danger, I think is the one. There's the ambush in the alley, when I forget where they in Mexico, I don't remember anymore, but it's
I don't
a
either.
really it's a really bad ambush, and everybody gets shot up and this and that, and they just narrowly survive. And they're like, look, in this kind of situation, you're kind of screwed. I mean, obviously he's the hero, he doesn't die, but I mean, this is a really bad spot to be in. So the whole point is never ending there, never
Yeah.
end up over there. It's like when one guy said is in grappling matches or in MMA matches, if you're in a crucifix position, which is basically you've got your arms like this, and he's wrapped sideways. He's got both legs wrapping one arm, and he's got both arms on the other arm, and he's pulling you open and hammering elbows in your face. What's the solution? Don't end up there. Don't go. I mean, before you get there, is that's
Yes.
when the stuff happens.
Yeah.
And Mark McKeown likes to call this a 27 ninjas question, which is you get the what if questions, and then eventually somebody asks, yeah, what if you're in like this dark alley and there's 27 ninjas popping out of the alley with swords and Uzis and this and that. The answer is you die, because you don't get out of that one. The question is, what were you doing in that dark alley, where there's ninjas hanging out? Why are you
Right.
there? So,
Right.
there's a solution, and it has nothing to do with the physical aspect. And
That's
go
a
ahead.
really good point to watch out for the what if
Yeah,
people.
you can
They're
keep
gonna
going,
they're
but
gonna what if you to death.
yeah,
And as an instructor, you have to know when to cut that off and say, hey, you have a lot of questions. So why don't we talk after class? Because I got a lot of material left to cover.
yeah,
So let's get back to it.
yeah. And I mean, to your point about trying to make people understand about situational awareness and its importance, I think maybe, I mean, we're probably going towards hard times very soon this winter, especially in Europe. But I'm guessing for the US, I mean, inflation is what it is, and prices are going up, and there's more and more trouble brewing. We've got midterms coming up as well. There's always a fun time. Um, so there's a high likelihood that in the coming months and perhaps even years, if the world economy crashes or gets a lot worse, that it's going to be hard times for everybody, which means by default, everybody's under stress a whole lot more than they would be, which means by default, more conflicts, not necessarily violence, but more conflicts or more potential for conflict. And then, like, right, okay, you want to avoid that conflict, if only because you don't want the medical bills if something goes wrong. But you want to avoid that. And it's going to start with situational awareness. It's like, look at the world around you. The example that I give now, like if you look at 2022, can you honestly say that 2022 is a better year where things have calmed down and people are just being more respectful towards each other, more open, and culturally everything's simmering down and it's more peace and love and harmony, as opposed to 2021, 2020, 1999, so all the way back to wherever you want to go? Maybe not the Second World War, but just, how far do you go back until you say, like, yeah, that year was better? Or are you saying, like, no, last year was bad, but now everything's great? And I think
Right.
most people can see, if you just pay attention to the news a little bit, see what's going on around, not just in your country, but in the world. You're like, crap, inflation is through the roof. Big companies are failing. War in Europe again since, 70 plus years. China's locking down again. We've got supply chain crisis going on. And I mean, it just keeps piling up, right? Like, are you sure you want to dismiss the fact that you might want to avoid violence and avoid conflict in this situation? And it's likely to escalate. My fear is that, especially in Europe, that in a month or two, when it actually starts getting really cold, and it might not even take that long, and people don't put on their heating because it's too expensive,
Yeah.
is that it's going to be in a new reality for a lot of people. I was talking about this a few weeks ago. I know, sorry, last week, and then a few days ago, one of my clients, and he said that the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes.
It's okay. It's a little bit antiquated, but just using that as a model.
Yes.
We're all the way, and for the people who don't know it, all the way at the bottom is just pure survival and so on. And the top of that hierarchy is just, I forgot what term he used, self-improvement, or I forgot what it was, but just basically you and what kind of legacy do you want to leave? How do you want to, present yourself to the world? Blah blah blah. A lot of people have been living in that top level for a long time, and we risk getting kicked all the way down. Like, I can pick either I'm using the heating tonight, or I feed my children. Which one do I pick? Which brings you back to very, very basic way of living. And then if that happens, and in Europe, it's pretty much almost guaranteed to happen at this stage, how do you avoid conflict when everybody is on edge like that in those kind of societies? And I'm having somebody on in a week or two who has lived in such societies where life is very hard. How do you avoid conflicts? And it's going to start with being aware of what's going on. So I'm kind of thinking that you might have a lot more work and demand for your classes coming soon, as society hardens and becomes more difficult to live with. And I could be wrong. We might discover, this nuclear fission reactor that they've been hiding for years, and it's going to be free electricity for everybody. Kind of doubt it, though.
No, not said on a, it seems wrong to say, yay, more business, because that means the world is in more turmoil. But yeah, no, I agree. And I don't want to end on a pessimist note.
Oh no, my listeners are used to that. I rant and rave, and I'm Mr. Doom and Gloom at times, which is not fair, because I've started saying it more out loud nowadays. Is that there will be another an end to this, the negative stuff. Remember the 1930s, the Great Depression. What came after that? Eventually, not right away, but eventually, the US turned into a powerhouse and basically a superpower afterwards. So there will be an end to this, and we all want, for our children to have a better future. But that doesn't mean that the bad stuff we just ignore it. And I think a lot of people will be more open to anything to do with security, safety, whether it is the lowest levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or just some other stuff. Just how do I generally keep myself safe and my family and my kids and so on. So that's my sense. But again, I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
We will see. Time will tell.
Yeah. Anyway, this was a lot of fun. I'm very happy that you answered my really bizarre questions at times.
Anytime. I like it, because I will say, you know what? I don't know.
Well, it's the thing is that, like, the question with trying to explain to women pure physical strength of men. This is one of the things that I struggle with. One of the many questions that I have when I teach is how can I teach this better? And the biggest difference for me, I've taught for many, many years women's self-defense courses and private training and so on. And every case is different. Every lady that I taught was coming with different baggage, different experiences. Some really horrible, others just fearful of, like, okay, this happened to a friend of mine, don't want it. I've had people ask me to teach their children, their teenage daughters, and the elderly and anything in between. And it's one of the keys for me is always that you just don't want it to get too physical. If at all you can avoid it, never let it get too physical. And make sure that you know what's going on, your own limits, and you recognize danger when it's there. But you have to see it first, then recognize it for what it is, and then just act upon it and stay safe. Yeah,
don't doubt your intuition.
No.
You'll know. Your intuition will say something is off.
Yeah.
Something's not right. And just pay attention. And you may never know what could have happened, and that's okay.
There's a book coming out, I think, or it is out. I'm not sure. I haven't read it. I don't know who wrote it, but there's a bunch of people in there. And I think the title of the book is something along the lines of "There I Was and Nothing Happened."
Yes.
You
Jason.
know about it?
Yes. I actually got a pre-read. I got to pre-read the copy.
Okay.
Jason Brick from Safest Family on the Block is putting, it's a compilation. So it's a bunch
That's what I thought. Yeah.
of instructors sharing stories of nothing happening. And it comes there. I think almost every author that submitted a story comes from a martial arts background. So I think it's refreshing to hear instructors who are typically teaching physical skills to talk about the importance of nothing happening. Yeah. So no, yes, it will be coming out. I'm supposed to be writing a review when the Amazon page is up. So I can send you a note when I get that.
Cool.
Like, hey, it's ready to go.
So, and what's up for you next? I mean, okay, so when is the next book coming out? Put you on the spot.
Hey. No, actually right now I'm working on creating, because again, it's how can I get this information out to the most amount of people? How can I make it most accessible to anyone, no matter where they are or financial status or whatever. So I'm actually working on putting together some e-workbooks. So not like another ebook, not writing another long book, but making it more focused. Like, hey, what are things you can do with your kids to build their situational awareness skills? How can you talk to them in a way that doesn't scare them, but builds these skills? So that's kind of my next project right now, is working on some workbooks that people could download, do, put into action, apply it to their life. And then I would love to do some more online training programs that, again, people could download and watch. But yeah, so that's kind of where things are at right now. But
any idea when those ebooks would come out, or the online training, the deadlines?
Well, the online training we had to, the online training program is second. What we're focused on right now is creating the ebooks, the workbooks, just to make sure it's clear. It's not like another book, is creating those ebooks. And I've got some travel and some opportunities, like being on your podcast. I want to have these things online ready to go. So when people hear me and they're like, I really want, because I get a lot of times, how do I talk to my kids? And the age range, again, it depends, male, female, age range. But if we're talking about these skills early in a way that's not like stranger danger, if we can start having these conversations, kids, in my opinion, have zero filter. They'll tell people what they think, and they're curious. They're hungry to learn. So if we can catch them at those stages, it's only going to make things in the future easier for them to pick up, easier for them to recognize behaviors that are off, things that are off, and to be able to articulate in a way that then an adult can take action on. I use the example, and I want to get to your Patreon followers, subscribers here too. Those questions are awesome. But it's saying that, I'll use me. If I'm like, gosh, that guy creeps me out, that's not a criminal offense. Being creepy isn't illegal. So I have to be able to articulate what behaviors gave me the creeps. Like there's that book Creepology, which I love, and talk, promote or share that with people, that if they want to check it out, it's a nice, easy read, but it really gets into what is creepy mean. But that's just so often. And again, I have a note about that to talk about in the Patreon section, is there's just so many things that people get mad. No, it's not fair. It's not right. You shouldn't have had to experience that or go through it. But here's the reality of law. Here's the reality of offenses that you have to have an understanding of, because there's just limits, there's limitations. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so excellent.
Become a Patreon subscriber for Wim.
Well, we're going to get to that right away. Before we do, where can people reach you?
You can find me online at my website, thediamondarrowgroup.com. You can Google the Diamond Arrow Group, it'll come up. And it's the Diamond Arrow Group on Instagram and Facebook. And if you want to connect with me and LinkedIn, more on that professional workplace violence prevention, wellness, it's Kelly Sayre. So
All right, good. And I'll put links to that in the show notes for everybody. So check out the description wherever you're listening to us here. There'll be a link to my blog with the exact episode number, and you can find all that there. All right, Kelly, this was awesome. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thanks for having me
So
again.
for everybody else, don't go away. We are going to keep recording for the Patreon bonus episodes because I got a bunch of fun questions from my patrons, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. And other than that, I want to thank you for listening and talk to you next time. Bye-bye.